Galactic sentient broadcast. Target, planet Earth. Begin invasion in 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, invaders. My name is Scott. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be reviewing my wrap-up for the Women in Horror Month, which was February, was Ladies of Horror Fiction, Women in Horror. There's a hashtag and a whole reading bonanza going on for the month of February to read female authors, women who write horror books. So I had gone into a readathon in the first half of the month. The second half of the month, I was able to tackle 6 books, which was pretty amazing. But these are all fairly short. They're under 300 pages about. And I just got them on audiobook and listened to them at 2 times the speed, which was pretty sweet. So let's go through them. I have a little bit of a synopsis here. Some of them I'll talk about more than others. I just grabbed some snippets so you guys can get a feel of the book and what it's about. So the first one I read was The Rust Maidens by Gwendolyn Keist. This is a horror book. It's a bit of a fantasy book. Going into this book, I expected more of the horror, slasher, bloodshed, scary things, brutal stuff. But it was more kind of like a fantasy book, a metamorphosis story, a transformation story without a lot of violence in it, I suppose. But I appreciated the setting of the book. I grew up in Ohio, and this book takes place in Cleveland, so I knew places like Tower City and the Flats, stuff like that it took place in, you know. But the story itself I thought was really interesting. So a little blurb for the book that I grabbed was that the girls of Denton Street are changing. It starts with footprints of dark water on the sidewalk. Then one by one, the girls' bodies wither away, their fingernails turning into broken glass, and their bones exposed like corroded metal beneath their flesh, which was pretty cool. So it alternates between past and present. It opens up with your main character kind of in the present tense, going back into this place where she had lived and looking through the ruins of the story, and then it flashes back to the past, and it kind of does like a Tarantino or something where you are thrown into a situation in the present tense. You don't know what happened, everything's in disarray, and people are looking at you funny, but then it goes back to the story of how you got there. So that was good. I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed that one. The next one I read was Something Borrowed, Something Bloodsoaked by Krista Carmen. This one was really cool. I heard about this one from the Bloody Beach read-along a while ago, which hosted by Cami from Cami's Corner, Rachel from Stage of Orange, I think, and Jason from Jason's Weird Reads. That also included Cameron Robeek was in there as well, and Krista Carmen was there. They talked about this book. And so I had it on my TBR for a while, and I was able to get the audio of it, which was great. This one goes, let's see, I'll read a few of the descriptions here that talks about the story. So it's a collection of short stories written. So here's some of those stories. A young woman's fears regarding the gruesome photos appearing on her cell phone prove justified in a ghastly and unexpected way. A chainsaw-wielding Evil Dead fan defends herself against a trio of undead intruders. A bride-to-be comes to wish that the door between the physical and the spiritual worlds had stayed shut on All Hallows Eve. A lone passenger on a midnight train finds that the engineer has rerouted them toward a past she'd prefer to forget. A mother abandons a life she no longer recognizes as her own to walk up a mysterious staircase in the woods. So those stories are really cool. There's the one I think that they talked about, the one that I like too, is called Red Room. That was the one with the pictures on the cell phone. That was pretty sweet. Some of the other chapter story titles are called Liquid Handcuffs was one. Lady of the Flies. The Girl Who Loved Bruce Campbell was the Evil Dead fan. Wolves at the Door and The Bears in the Forest. The One Who Answers the Door. So those were really interesting, cool horror stories that kind of had the darker thing that I was looking for from The Rust Maidens. So I gave that one 5 out of 5 stars. That was amazing. It was a great story, collection of stories. The next one I read was Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. This is more of kind of like a fiction story with a little bit of horror and a little bit of fantasy, I suppose. So I didn't know really what to expect going into this. I just kind of saw it. It was on audio from the library, and I grabbed it. Said, hey, I think I heard people talking about this one before. This one goes, a young woman named Amanda lies dying in a rural hospital clinic. A boy named David sits beside her. She's not his mother. He's not her child. Together they tell a haunting story of broken souls, toxins, and the power and desperation of family. So yeah, this book, I earlier I said I kind of breezed through it quickly. This one was kind of creepy and eerie. David is a bit of a mysterious weirdo. The main character, who I forget, it was a couple weeks ago, and their neighbor. So the main character has a daughter, and David is the neighbor's son, I believe, and he's kind of like talking to her in her head while she's in this hospital, and she can't really tell what's real and what's not. That one was okay. I didn't sink into it as much as I had expected. And usually with audiobooks like that, even if I listen to them quickly, like I can get a feeling for that. This one I didn't really latch onto. But I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was kind of a mediocre one for me. The next one I read was The Dark Dark by Samantha Hunt. This one too was kind of the same thing as Fever Dream. It was more of a fictional story, a bit of magical realism. This too is a collection of stories that were kind of just oddball. There's some kind of funky things happening. Some of them were really good. I enjoyed. Some of them were just I was kind of lost. So the stories of this one go like this. An FBI agent falls in love with a robot built for a suicide mission. That one I really liked. A young woman unintentionally cheats on her husband when she is transformed nightly into a deer. That one was good too. 2 strangers become lovers and find themselves somehow responsible for the resurrection of a dog. That one was weird. A woman tries to start her life anew after the loss of a child, but cannot help riddling that new life with lies. 13 pregnant teenagers develop a strange relationship with the founding fathers of American history. That one that one was odd. I couldn't follow that one that well. I knew that they were girls and they were all pregnant. I didn't catch on as to why. And the last one was A Lonely Woman's Fertility Treatments Become the Stuff of Science Fiction. And I think that, reproduction through duplication, something like that. So that one was good. Some of them were better than others, so I gave that one 3 out of 5 stars. And then I had also read We Have Always Lived in This Castle by Shirley Jackson. This is a pretty classic, fairly popular horror story. It's kind of a gothic tale. And this one too, I expected more of the horror aspects, but it was more of kind of a literary classic with spooky undertones and a bit of a mystery. Where that Mary Cat is living in the castle with her sister and their uncle, but the rest of her family is dead. She goes into town, she gets strange looks, and people call her a murderer. And it goes on to tell a story of why they're accusing her of that, what the townsfolk and all those other rumors are going on about the family who lives in there, in the house. And then they have like people over for tea, and then they kind of spook them into whether or not Mary Cat poisoned their family, and if they're going to poison the people that come and visit too. And then there's the cousin Charlie, who came into town, and we can't really know if he's the cousin or if he's up to no good, and he starts causing ripples amongst the family, and Mary Cat hates him and wants him to die. So there was pieces of the book I really liked. I understand why it's so beloved, and it was a good story. I think when I was looking for like horror books, I expected to be, cringy, gruesome stuff. This one was just kind of a spooky tale, a good haunt. It wasn't really a haunting tale either. That's what I was kind of expecting, looking at the cover, thinking, oh, these people are haunting the people who come and live in a castle. It wasn't really any of that, so I was kind of thrown by that. But I really enjoyed the read. it's a really strong book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars just for my expectations going into it. I have not read any of Shirley Jackson's other material. I don't think I've read any of these other authors' other books. But this one I really wanted to get into just to get it under my reading repertoire, my reading resume. And the last one, and the best for last, and you may have heard a lot about this from other people amongst the horror communities, was Dear Laura by Gemma Amor. And this one was fantastic. I think this one was what I was looking for in all the other books, where there's a bit of a creepy tone. There is kind of this haunting elements, kind of like, you know, the movie It Follows. Like there was something that was always following Laura in this story, based on something that happened to her when she was like 10 or 11 or 13, preteen, I don't know. But it just goes that when she had our first kiss with the boy at the bus stop, and that boy she had to go back to her house to pick something up, and when she came back, she saw the boy getting into a car with a stranger, and now that boy has disappeared. I forget what his name is. It started with a B. But throughout the story, Laura gets letters from some stranger just named X with clues on how to find the body of her friends. So throughout Laura's growing up and the story here, Laura receives letters from a mysterious writer named X, who provides her clues to where she can find this boy. What's his name? But to get those clues, she has to give him something of hers, a personal item of hers, in order to get a clue. And so some of the clues are coordinates. She doesn't really know what to make of the coordinates. She goes to the coordinates that are provided. I won't reveal much about what happens, but it was really a good tale. There were parts of it that did make you get a little cringy. There were parts that kind of were spooky. You weren't really sure if something deadly was going to happen. And then at the end, there was I'll just say a good, satisfying ending to it all, which means that maybe justice, maybe not. I don't want to put any thoughts into your head. So anyway, Dear Laura, that was my last book of the Ladies of Horror Fiction month. That was a great one. I know a lot of other people have raved about it. This is my rave about it as well. Go check it out. I will link to the books down below where you can find them and whatnot. So that's my wrap up of the February Ladies of Horror Fiction month. So go check some of those books out. Hopefully you'll like them. I'll try to get more horror squeezed into my reading repertoire because I enjoy it a lot. But thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.